Emily Porter was the kind of person who made everything around her feel a little more alive. At 28, she had turned her love for upcycling thrifted furniture into a small but growing side hustle. Her tiny apartment in Asheville, North Carolina, was filled with color, vintage finds, and little pieces she restored with care. Everything had a story. On June 5, 2022, she posted one of her favorite items, a vintage 1960s velvet armchair she had restored over the past month. Emerald green, gold buttons, and real wooden legs. She listed it on Facebook Marketplace for $120 with a caption that read, "Love this beauty, but it's time to let her go, Greenheart." By 10:38 a.m., someone messaged her. The profile name was Brian C. His message was polite and straightforward. "Hi, super interested. I can pick it up today if it's still available." Emily responded almost instantly. He offered to pay in cash and asked if they could meet at 3 p.m. on Blue Rock Road, a public shopping area about 10 minutes from Emily's home. It was a known meetup spot for buyers and sellers in town. Emily mentioned it casually to her older sister, Kayla, over a quick FaceTime chat. Meeting a guy for the green chair later, around 3. Shouldn't take long. Then maybe I'll grab Boba. Kayla asked if Darren, Emily's boyfriend, was going with her. Nah, he's at work. It's broad daylight. I'll be fine. She always was. Emily was cautious by nature. She usually met buyers in public places and even kept a seller's checklist on her fridge. Balabox with check, share buyer's profile. Balabox with check, tell someone where you're going. Balabox with check, only meet in daylight. Balabox with check, trust your gut. This time, she followed most of the rules. At 2:45 p.m., she loaded the chair into the back of her white 2015 Hyundai Sonata and texted Kayla. Heading out now, buyer said he's already there. She shared the link to Brian C.'s Facebook profile. It looked legit. A few selfies, posts about a dog, and several mutual friends, likely from local buy-sell groups. What no one knew yet was that none of it was real. Emily never returned. At 6:10 p.m., Kayla sent a casual text. How'd it go? Buyer cool. No response. At 7:40 p.m., Darren called, straight to voicemail. By 9 p.m., panic set in. Darren drove to Blue Rock Road himself. The lot was empty. Emily wasn't there. But at 10:15 p.m., 20 miles away, in front of an abandoned gas station near Black Hollow, police received a call from a concerned citizen. A car had been sitting with its lights on for over an hour. Inside was Emily's Hyundai. The keys were still in the ignition. The driver's door was ajar. Her purse, missing. Her phone, gone. The chair? Gone. But Emily? There was no sign of her at all. And that night, the quiet streets of Asheville would never feel safe again. When Emily's white Hyundai Sonata was found outside the old Fillmore gas station, everything inside it was intact. Her water bottle in the cup holder, an old canvas tote bag on the passenger seat with a pack of gum and a paintbrush sticking out. But something was off. The front seat was pushed back farther than Emily usually kept it, almost like someone taller had driven. Her phone was missing, and so was the velvet chair she had gone to sell. No signs of struggle, no blood. Just the eerie silence of an abandoned highway stop. Her car left like a ghost of someone who had just vanished into thin air. The gas station had been shut down for nearly 5 years. The pumps rusted, windows boarded, with only one security camera in the area still functional. Police pulled the footage. At 5:57 p.m., her car pulled into the lot. A figure, possibly Emily, was seen in the driver's seat. The car sat idling for 10 minutes. Then, the lights turned off. No one was seen leaving. The camera angle was poor, partially blocked by overgrown brush and a leaning, closed sign. No other vehicles were seen arriving or leaving on camera, but the footage had blind spots. It was far from helpful. Investigators would later learn that Emily's car had not been driven there by her. What happened between 3 p.m., when she was supposed to meet Brian C., and 6 p.m., when her car was dumped? Her family's nightmare had begun. Darren, her boyfriend, sat with investigators at the Asheville Police Department, going over the timeline again and again. He told them Emily had texted at 2:45 p.m. that she was on her way to meet the buyer. Her last seen location on Find My iPhone was near Blue Rock Road, right around 3:12 p.m. But after that, nothing. Her phone stopped updating. No outgoing messages. No calls. It was like someone had shut it off, or worse, destroyed it. Detectives canvassed the shopping complex at Blue Rock Road, hoping to find a witness. It was a busy Sunday. Surely someone had seen her? A cashier at a nearby coffee shop confirmed. Yeah, I saw her. Around 3. She was parked by the corner. She got out. Looked like she was waiting for someone. Kinda nervous. Then this guy walked up. Tall hoodie. I couldn't see his face. When shown pictures of Emily, the barista nodded. That was her. But I never saw her come back. Another witness reported seeing a green SUV, older model, possibly a Chevy Tahoe, parked across the lot facing Emily's car. It didn't have a front plate. At this point, detectives knew. Emily had arrived at the meetup. She had met someone. That someone may have forced her into another vehicle. Her car had been dumped nearly 20 miles away hours later. What struck investigators as chilling was the precision. This wasn't chaotic. This wasn't random. It was staged. Emily's family released a plea on social media that night, begging for anyone who had seen her or the mysterious buyer to come forward. Meanwhile, forensic teams dusted her car. No foreign fingerprints. No DNA. The vehicle had been wiped clean. Dashboard, steering wheel, door handles, even the trunk. Whoever moved her car knew what they were doing. They were careful. They were methodical. And they had done this before. The one thing they hadn't counted on was what Emily had left behind. A clue, waiting to be found, hanging in a tree 50 miles away. By the time local news ran Emily Porter's disappearance, dozens of people had already shared screenshots of the Facebook profile she'd been messaging, Brian C. At first glance, the account seemed normal. A blurry profile picture of a man holding a golden retriever, a timeline filled with safe, neutral posts, a dog video, a shared post about yard sales, and a comment on a local bakery page. It had been created months earlier and had over 150 friends, many of them appearing to be from Asheville. But to cybercrime investigators, the profile smelled wrong. The friends? Mostly inactive accounts. Some had no posts or used AI-generated photos. A reverse image search revealed Brian's dog photo was stolen from a Canadian pet groomer's Instagram. The smiling man in the profile? His face belonged to someone else entirely. A man who had no idea his picture had been copied and reused to lure women on the internet. The Brian C. account had only one real purpose: to gain trust. Investigators contacted Facebook with an urgent subpoena. They received metadata confirming the account was created just 3 weeks before Emily disappeared. It had been accessed from various locations, coffee shops, libraries, and once, through a VPN from another state. The email address tied to it was a throwaway, clark757@gmail.com, created on a public terminal at the Hendersonville Public Library. A fake person, a fake email, a real predator. Then something even more disturbing surfaced. After police released screenshots of the profile, 7 women came forward with screenshots of their own. Each had been contacted by Brian C. in the past 2 months with similar stories. Hey, super interested in your listing. Is it still available? Cash okay? I can pick it up today. Want to meet at the storage units by the old mall? The patterns were unmistakable. Each woman had listed items on Facebook Marketplace. Each had been asked to meet somewhere semi-public, but also easy to isolate, like a lot behind a closed store or a trailhead parking area. One woman, Dana, told detectives, I agreed to meet him, but he changed the location last minute. Said he got stuck near a service road. I just had this weird feeling. So I left. Dana's instincts saved her life. Emily never got that chance. Each woman's case on its own looked like nothing. A flake, a canceled sale. But now, lined up side by side, it was clear someone had been hunting. The man behind Brian C. had been testing his tactics, refining his approach, waiting for the right moment and the right victim. The psychological profile being built pointed towards someone intelligent, manipulative, and deliberate. A person skilled at erasing digital footprints and masking their true identity. But they made one mistake. In one of the messages to a woman named Kelsey, Brian had forgotten to fully mask his location when accessing Messenger. The metadata traced the login to a public Wi-Fi router just outside Asheville, in a part of town known for rundown rentals and long-term motels. Within hours, investigators zeroed in on a 6-block radius. Somewhere in that grid was the man who wasn't Brian C. And Emily's only chance of being found, alive, depended on what they uncovered next. 3 days after Emily Porter vanished, hope was starting to fade. Detectives had no solid leads. The Facebook profile was a dead end. The car yielded no usable prints. And the last digital footprint from Emily's phone was still that brief, vague location ping near Blue Rock Road at 3:12 p.m. on the day she disappeared. Then, a break, but not from law enforcement. From a hiker. Susan Lyle, a 56-year-old nature photographer, was trekking a remote path in the Pisgah National Forest, 50 miles from where Emily had been last seen. The trail was steep, muddy, and not one most people used during summer. Susan had taken a detour to photograph a fox den when she noticed something strange. About 8 feet up in the crook of a tall pine tree, wedged between two branches, was a phone. At first she thought it was trash. Then she climbed onto a large rock to get a better look and saw that the phone was cracked, blood-specked, and still slightly warm from the sun. She immediately called authorities. When detectives arrived, the area was sealed off. The phone, cracked but intact, was recovered and quickly confirmed as Emily Porter's. The device had been placed, not thrown. There were no scratch marks on the case or screen consistent with a fall. It looked as though someone had climbed the tree and wedged it there deliberately. Why? The phone had been in airplane mode. No GPS signals. No outgoing messages. But the forensic tech team discovered something chilling. A single unsent message, typed and never delivered. This guy's not who he said. There was also one photo, taken on June 5th at 3:22 p.m. It was blurry, but clear enough to send chills through everyone who saw it. A dirt road. A shadowed figure in the lower right corner. Just a silhouette reflected on the window of a car. Male. Broad shoulders. Wearing what looked like a hoodie. It was taken from the passenger seat. And it appeared to be mid-confrontation, the angle slightly off, as if Emily was hiding the phone while she snapped it. Why didn't the message send? Why didn't she run? Or did she? The area where the phone was found had no vehicle access. The trail was barely marked. You'd have to know it existed to even consider going there. This wasn't a place you stumbled into. It was a place you planned to reach. Canvassing the immediate area, search teams found something else. Several long drag marks in the dirt, claw marks on the tree trunk, and embedded in the bark, a single torn thread, green velvet, matching the chair Emily was selling. What if she tried to escape? What if she did escape and hid the phone herself? Or, more terrifyingly, what if he let her go, just long enough to watch her run? Back at the precinct, detectives laid out everything. Emily had likely taken a photo of her abductor during or shortly after meeting him. She typed a message trying to warn someone, but never hit send. Her phone was taken and later placed deliberately in a hidden part of the woods. And now, they had a location. That forest had just gone from background noise to ground zero. They brought in drones, dogs, and rangers. Somewhere, in the dense thickets of Pisgah, maybe still alive, Emily might be waiting. Or watching. Pisgah National Forest is vast, over 500,000 acres of thick trees, unmarked trails, and winding back roads. It's beautiful and nearly impossible to search without precision. The area where Emily's phone was found was rugged, isolated, and more than 45 miles from where her abandoned car had been discovered. That gap raised terrifying questions. How did she get here? Was she brought alive? Or had this been a body dump gone wrong? Search teams mobilized immediately. Forensic dogs scoured the trail while drones hovered above, scanning for heat signatures and signs of human presence. Within hours, new evidence emerged. Just 300 feet from the pine tree, a search dog signaled. Investigators rushed to the site and found deep drag marks in the dirt, like something, or someone, had been pulled through the underbrush. There were broken twigs, bits of disturbed moss, and most disturbing of all, a woman's sneaker, partially buried in a pile of pine needles. It was a size 6, the same Emily wore. Beside it, tucked under a log, they found a torn piece of velvet fabric, green, stained, and ripped along the seam. Investigators matched it to the armrest of the chair Emily had listed for sale. Had she been in the back of a vehicle with the chair when it was dumped? Or did the chair fall apart during a struggle? Everything pointed to a terrifying possibility. Emily had been alive when she was taken into this forest. Further up the trail, officers found claw marks, not animal scratches, but human fingernail scrapes, etched into the bark of a tree. She had tried to climb. There was blood beneath one of the marks, dried, old, and beginning to crust. DNA would later confirm It was Emily's. For a moment, detectives dared to hope. If she fought here, if she bled here, she might have escaped here. Then came the twist. Surveillance footage from a fire lookout tower, positioned miles away but pointed in the right direction, picked up faint infrared movement on the evening of June 5th, around 9:20 p.m. A lone figure, limping, darting through the trees. It was far, it was grainy, but it was human. And small. Emily's build. Could she have broken free? Could she still be out there, hiding, surviving on instinct? The theory began to form. Her abductor had brought her into the woods, maybe to kill her. But Emily resisted. She fought. She ran. And somewhere in that chaos, she managed to hide her phone, maybe as a final breadcrumb, knowing someone might find it. And if she could do that, maybe she could do more. Searchers expanded their grid. They brought in additional dogs trained specifically to track blood scent and decomposition. And soon, they found something else. A shallow depression in the ground, like a makeshift pit or hole, partially covered in leaves. Inside was nothing, but nearby, a crumpled fast food wrapper, an empty energy drink can, and a length of rope. All recent. Whoever brought Emily here had planned to stay. Maybe longer than we'll ever know. Investigators now had no doubt. Emily wasn't just taken. She was hunted. With the discovery of Emily's phone, the torn velvet, and the signs of struggle in Pisgah Forest, investigators now had a direction, literally. But Pisgah is wild and unforgiving. With so many dirt paths, service roads, and unmarked trails, law enforcement knew they needed to get smarter. That's when Detective Lindsay Watts, a sharp-minded member of the State Bureau of Investigation, had an idea. What if we stop thinking like cops and start thinking like him? She mapped out the forest roads, not just the hiking trails, but the hidden fire lanes and maintenance paths only used by rangers or hunters. They weren't on Google Maps. You'd have to know they were there. One of those roads, Service Road 73C, was only accessible from a logging route near Blue Rock Ridge, about 2 miles from where Emily's phone had been found. And at the entrance to that road was a trail cam, mounted 12 feet high on a tree. Unmarked. Motion triggered. It didn't belong to law enforcement. It was owned by a local wildlife photographer named Travis King, who had been documenting fox populations in the area. When police contacted him, he gladly handed over the SD card. And what they found changed everything. On the evening of June 5th, timestamped 5:38 p.m., the camera captured a dark green SUV turning onto the service road. It was old, boxy. No visible front license plate. The rear plate had been blurred by mud, or more likely, something deliberately smeared across it. But the image was clear enough to make out the model. A 2003 to 2006 Chevrolet Tahoe. In the passenger seat, there was movement. A shape. Small. Slouched. The image wasn't clear enough to see a face, but it looked like someone. Emily's size. Then, 20 minutes later, the SUV reappeared on the cam, heading back the way it came. But something was different. This time, the passenger seat was empty. The SUV had dropped someone, or something, off in the forest. That image alone didn't solve the case. But it narrowed the investigation drastically. Only about 450 vehicles of that make, model, and year were registered in a 100-mile radius. Even fewer were dark green. Detectives began pulling records. Most owners were quickly eliminated, older drivers, families, or vehicles no longer in use. Then came a name. Mark Delaney. Age, 42. Lived alone. Owned a green 2005 Chevy Tahoe. No job. No social media. And a sealed juvenile record. Delaney had a small property about 20 miles southeast of Asheville, surrounded by woods, near the border of Buncombe and McDowell counties. His home wasn't on a main road. It was accessed by a gravel path, lined with overgrown trees and a rusting mailbox with no name. Neighbors said they barely saw him. When they did, he was working on the SUV or fixing things in his shed. A man of few words. Just weird, they said. He didn't talk. He just watched. Police ran the vehicle's info. The SUV had been ticketed once, in 2019, for illegal parking near a hiking trail where another woman had gone missing. That case? Never solved. It was too much to ignore. With mounting evidence, detectives prepared a warrant to search Delaney's property. But before they could serve it, they found something else. A second camera, a hunting cam, deeper in the woods near where Emily's phone had been placed. And this one caught something worse. A man, walking toward the tree. A dark hoodie, a gloved hand, and in that hand was Emily's phone. In investigations like these, there's often a moment when everything changes, not because of high-tech gadgets or digital clues, but because of a pair of eyes. A witness. A person who notices what others miss. For this case, that person was Tom Haverford, a 67-year-old retired forest ranger and Vietnam veteran who lived in a small cabin less than 3 miles from where Emily's phone had been found. Tom wasn't someone who got involved in town gossip or watched much television, but he did know the woods, every tree, every trail, and every sound. When the news of Emily's disappearance started circulating, and when search helicopters began combing his side of the forest, he knew something terrible had happened. He reached out to authorities voluntarily. "I saw a green SUV," Tom told investigators. "Not one I recognized. It was parked along a closed logging road near Dead Man's Creek on the night she disappeared, sometime before sundown." But it wasn't just what he saw. It's what he heard that shook detectives to the core. Tom said that around 12:27 a.m., hours after sunset, while he sat on his porch with his dog and a cup of tea, he heard something he hadn't heard in years. A scream. A woman's scream. Not like she stubbed a toe. The kind that goes all the way through your bones. He paused. Then a car. Fast. Crashing through brush. Then nothing. Tom had been a ranger for 40 years. He knew animal sounds. He knew the difference between an owl, a bobcat, or a deer in distress. This wasn't that. He walked the area the next morning, found tire tracks on the soft forest floor. Deep ones. Wide ones. SUV-level treads. They matched what police had already discovered, Goodyear Wranglerats. A popular off-road tire often used on older Tahoes. Tom also remembered something else. That SUV was parked facing the woods, not the road. Like whoever was driving was watching. Waiting. Investigators brought Tom to the station and showed him stills from the trail cam. He confirmed it. That's the one. Same build. Same missing front plate. They asked him how often he saw vehicles like that. He laughed grimly. Never. Folks around here hike. They don't lurk. Tom's testimony did two crucial things. One, it tightened the timeline. Whatever happened to Emily likely occurred between 5:38 p.m., SUV captured on cam, and 12:30 a.m., when the scream was heard. Two, it confirmed the predator wasn't just passing through. He had planned to bring her into that forest, to do something terrible. And there was more. Tom mentioned something that seemed minor at first, but would soon become key. About 2 weeks before that night, I saw a guy walking near the old Ranger Trail. Hoodie, ball cap, didn't wave, just stared. No vehicle, no gear, just watching the tree line. Detectives believed that was recon. The abductor had likely scouted the area ahead of time, looking for isolation points and possible dumping grounds. And if he had done that before, he'd likely done it again. Now they weren't just looking for Emily. They were looking for patterns. Because the man they were hunting might not have just taken one woman. He might have done this before. And worse, he might have done it again. When investigators ran Mark Delaney's name, it raised eyebrows, but nothing outright incriminating. His juvenile record was sealed. No adult arrests. No active warrants. No registered firearms. But something wasn't sitting right. Detective Lindsay Watts kept circling back to Delaney's property location, a remote parcel off Sunset Lane, a forgotten gravel path bordered by thick forest and decaying barns. It had once been part of a larger cattle farm in the 1960s, now abandoned, except for Delaney's rundown cottage and a rusting trailer parked out back. The local utility company confirmed that his property had minimal electricity usage and no recent water bill payments. The power was technically on, but the house hadn't been lit at night for weeks. Either he was living off-grid or using electricity very selectively. Even more chilling, several residents in the area had filed vague complaints over the past few years. One said their dog refused to walk past Delaney's path. It would bark, growl, then whimper. Another reported hearing chains rattling in the woods at night. And one elderly neighbor, Evelyn Rogers, 81 years old, once told her daughter that she had seen a young woman in a white tank top run across the tree line near Delaney's place in the summer of 2022. She looked barefoot, like she was trying to hide. That sighting was never reported to police at the time. Evelyn's daughter assumed it was just confusion or a dream. But now, it didn't seem so far-fetched. Detectives received a warrant to search Delaney's property. What they found would burn itself into their memories forever. The front door was jammed. No welcome mat. The window panes were covered with newspaper from 2007. When they finally forced their way inside, they were met with a wave of decay, the smell of mold, rust, and something else. Rot. The interior was a time capsule. Faded wallpaper, broken furniture, stacks of magazines, and a thick layer of dust, except in one room. The basement. It had a new bolt on the door, shiny, modern, unlike anything else in the house. Inside, the room had been soundproofed with foam padding. A single folding chair sat in the center. A metal chain was bolted to the floor. Next to it, a journal. Inside were disturbing entries, most of them written in block letters, dated and methodical. June 5th, took her. Quiet. Didn't fight. June 6th, she asked about her sister. Told her not to talk. June 8th, gave her water. June 9th, she stopped asking. Investigators froze. There was no name. No mention of Emily directly. But the dates matched the night she disappeared. It was clear this wasn't the first time the author had done this. There were older entries, vague references to others. 2009, she screamed too much. Buried her by the creek. 2015, didn't last long. Winter took her before I had to. Back upstairs, officers found something else. A Polaroid. It was wedged between pages of an old mechanical manual on the kitchen shelf. In the photo, a teenage girl, brunette, sitting on the floor, arms behind her back. Her eyes swollen from crying. She wasn't Emily. But this confirmed one terrifying truth. Emily wasn't the first. The Polaroid found in Delaney's home changed everything. The girl in the image, shackled, terrified, and clearly under duress, wasn't Emily Summers. She looked much younger, maybe 14 or 15, with long brunette hair and a faint scar on her jawline. She had never been reported missing in Emily's case. That meant only one thing. There was another victim, possibly more. Detectives immediately brought the photo to the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, and with assistance from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, a match came back just 48 hours later. Her name was Kayla Green. She went missing in 2011 from Chattanooga, Tennessee, at just 15 years old. Her case had gone cold within months. No witnesses, no leads, no trace. But now, nearly 14 years later, there she was in Delaney's house. In his trophy stash, Kayla's mother was contacted. When shown the image, she broke down. That's my baby. She had a scar from falling off her bike when she was 9. That's her. That's Kayla. This discovery blew the case wide open. Emily Summers' disappearance was no longer an isolated case. The FBI began cross-referencing Delaney's known movements, from property purchases, toll booth records, job histories, to fuel transactions, anything that could connect him to other disappearances. Soon, a disturbing pattern emerged. 2011, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Kayla Green, 15, disappears while walking home from school. 2013, Roanoke, Virginia. A college student named Marissa Webb vanishes from a laundromat. 2015, Beckley, West Virginia. A 19-year-old hitchhiker, Eva Cruz, was last seen getting into a green SUV. 2017, Asheville, North Carolina. A local waitress, Tiffany Marks, disappeared after her shift ended. No signs of struggle, just her keys left in the lock of her apartment door. All were young women. All vanished within 250 miles of where Delaney lived over the years. All were never found. No suspects. Until now. And there was more. Detectives went back to Delaney's property, this time with cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar. They scanned the fields, the dry creek bed, the base of an old well behind the barn. Within a week, they uncovered remains. Not Emily's. Not Kayla's. 3 different sets of human bones, in varying stages of decomposition. 2 female, 1 undetermined. They were buried in shallow graves, wrapped in plastic sheets, tied with the same type of cord found in Delaney's basement. This was no longer a kidnapping case. It was a serial killer investigation. Locals were stunned. A man they had seen working in town, buying groceries, occasionally fixing cars, was now believed to be one of the most prolific predators in the region. The FBI named the case the Lost Girls File. And Emily? She was the latest, but maybe not the last. There was still hope, faint, but real, that she was alive. After all, her body wasn't among those found. A week after the FBI named the investigation the Lost Girls File, a new discovery reignited hope in the search for Emily Summers. This time, it came from the trunk of Mark Delaney's car. The vehicle, an old forest green Ford Bronco, had been parked behind his barn for months. At first glance, it appeared abandoned. The tires were flat and the battery dead. But when forensics began their sweep, they found something strange. The interior had been meticulously cleaned, almost too clean. Bleach residue on the seats. Missing floor mats. Fresh bolts installed where the back seats once were. It was a sanitization job, a classic move for someone trying to erase something terrible. But the trunk panel had a false bottom. And underneath it, a small, spiral-bound notebook. Water-stained. Edges burned. But the inside was intact. The first page was dated June 6th, the day after Emily vanished. If anyone finds this, I don't know where I am. I'm trying to stay calm. He watches me through a hole in the wall. I write when he's asleep. Emily had been writing secretly, documenting everything. Her captor's movements, his habits, and her desperate attempts to survive. Page after page revealed a chilling picture. He doesn't speak much. Only watches. Brings food once a day. Always cold sandwiches. Sometimes he mutters to himself like someone's there, but there's no one. I think he hears voices. There's a door with chains. I think he's used it before. There's scratching marks on the floor. Deep ones. I pretend I don't see them. But most heartbreaking was Emily's resilience. I think about my sister every day. I don't want her to remember me as weak. I'm going to survive this. I will leave clues. I will not let him win. Emily wrote about hiding things, pieces of thread, a hairpin, a scrap of her shirt, in different places around the room. Breadcrumbs, in case anyone ever came looking. I stuck the pin inside the mattress. I scratched my name into the wood under the chair. If they find this room, they'll know I was here. And they did. When investigators returned to the soundproof basement, they checked beneath the chair leg, and there it was. Emily, carved faintly into the wood. Under the mattress, buried in the stuffing, was a rusted hairpin. The same one Emily mentioned using to try to pick the lock. She had been fighting the entire time. Even more vital, her journal mentioned hearing a creak nearby, water running at night, faint but constant. This meant something big. Emily may not have been held on Delaney's property the whole time. There was no stream nearby, no water sounds. The journal's last page was dated June 11th. He's moving me tonight. Said no more waiting. I'm scared. If I don't come back, tell them I didn't give up. It was the last thing she ever wrote. And now, investigators had a new clue. Emily may have been relocated to another hidden site, near water, possibly somewhere Delaney had used before. The race to find that second location began immediately. And this time, they had Emily's voice guiding them. Emily's final journal entry had mentioned one crucial detail. A creek or river she could hear running at night. There were no bodies of water near Delaney's primary property, which meant only one thing. He had another place, a second hideout, and Emily had been moved there. The FBI's search grid expanded rapidly. Using satellite imaging and old forestry maps, agents began scanning within a 100-mile radius, focusing on water-adjacent areas and properties Delaney might have accessed without drawing attention. That's when they found it. In the county archives, a property came up under the name Daniel Hale, a fake alias used in a 2019 land purchase. It was a 5-acre wooded lot bordering the Little Cane River, just 62 miles from Delaney's main residence. No roads led directly to it. You had to hike in. A search team was dispatched. They found a narrow, overgrown path hidden behind a rusted gate. The trail led to a crumbling one-room shack, tucked beneath a canopy of pines. It was less a cabin and more a makeshift bunker, built from scavenged lumber and salvaged concrete slabs. The second investigators stepped inside, they knew. Emily had been here. There was a metal cot in the corner, a chain bolted to the floor, and scratched into the wall, just above the bed frame, were the same initials. Yes, over and over again. Her marks. They swept the room. In the corner, behind a stack of old buckets, they found something else. A pile of torn fabric, a shirt sleeve, possibly from the green velvet armchair Emily had listed online. It was bloodstained. Next to it, a strand of long blonde hair tangled in duct tape. DNA would later confirm it was hers. But here's what stopped everyone cold. Inside a locked wooden chest beneath the floorboards, they found a camera, still functional, and inside it, a memory card. What it contained horrified even the most seasoned agents. It held recordings, surveillance footage, motion-detected clips of women, tied, blindfolded, pacing inside that same room. And in the most recent clip, dated June 11th at 10:23 p.m., a woman is seen trying to untie a rope. She's crying, limping. It was Emily. She was still alive, at least as of that recording. But there was no footage after that. The card was pulled, the camera unplugged, and outside the shack, in the muddy bank of the creek, search dogs led investigators 200 feet downstream, where the water got darker and deeper. There, tangled in tree roots, they found Emily's torn jacket. But no body. Divers were brought in. Cadaver dogs swept both banks. For 3 days, they searched, but still, no trace of her. There were only 2 explanations now. Either she drowned, or she escaped. And then, one last clue. Near the edge of the woods, etched into a tree trunk in faint, scratched lettering, were 6 letters. Still Al. It wasn't finished, but everyone who saw it knew what it meant. Still alive. Had she made it out? Was she sending a final message? The media exploded. The story shifted from a cold case tragedy to a potential survival miracle. And across the country, people began looking for her. 3 weeks after the discovery at the river shack, the search for Emily Summers had all but stalled. With no body found and no further evidence, public opinion was split. Had she escaped and disappeared? Or had the river simply swallowed her forever? Then came the call. A long-haul trucker named Barry Nolan was fueling up at a rest stop outside Flagstaff, Arizona, nearly 800 miles from where Emily had vanished. What he reported seemed unbelievable, until he described her in perfect detail. She was limping. Real bad. Blonde. Looked sunburned, like she'd been outside a long time. And scared. I asked if she needed help. She looked at me like I was the devil. Barry said she refused food, but asked to use his CB radio. When he turned away, she disappeared. At first, agents dismissed it. Emily's disappearance had occurred in North Carolina. This was across the country. But then Barry added a detail that changed everything. She had a notebook. One of them spiral kinds. Wouldn't let it go. Kept flipping through it like it was a map. Emily's journal. Suddenly, the timeline snapped into focus. She'd escaped the shack, fled the woods. But instead of going home, she went into hiding. Why? That was the question haunting Agent Rivera. She was convinced of one thing now. Emily was alive. And running, not from her captor, but from something else. That night, law enforcement agencies across 5 states were notified. A bolo alert went out with updated sketches based on how Emily might look now. Thinner, pale, possibly sunburned, walking with a limp. But 2 days later, another report surfaced. A diner waitress in Amarillo, Texas, 650 miles east of Flagstaff, called in after a disheveled girl matching Emily's description came in alone, ordered black coffee, and paid with a 1990s silver dollar coin. A rare collector's item. Emily's father, a coin collector, had reportedly given one to both daughters for protection when they were young. Emily never left home without it. The coin was real. It was hers. CCTV footage showed the girl entering the diner, but the security camera cut off at the moment she left. Just like that, another dead end. But a pattern had emerged. She was traveling west to east, avoiding interstates, using backroads, leaving behind just enough to be seen, but never enough to be caught. Someone that careful wasn't just running. She was going somewhere. Agent Rivera built a map. Every sighting, every trail. And the path they traced pointed directly to one chilling conclusion. Emily was heading home. Not to the hospital, not to the police, but to her twin sister, Lily. And as Rivera's team raced to intercept her in Tennessee, she feared the worst. If Emily was going home, then someone might be watching. Someone who wanted her to stay lost, forever. Lily Summers hadn't been back to her childhood home in nearly a year, not since Emily vanished. But that changed one rainy Saturday in September when she received a call from her landlord. The attic in her old family home, now a rental, had developed a leak. The tenants were away, and he needed her permission to access it. Lily agreed to meet him there. As she stepped inside the creaking front door, a flood of memories hit her. Emily sitting on the staircase in her prom dress, their dad telling ghost stories by the fireplace, their mom's favorite wind chimes still clinking softly in the rain. She climbed the attic stairs slowly, flashlight in hand. The leak was minor, just a loose shingle. But as she turned to leave, she spotted something strange near the edge of the attic floorboards. A metal tin, wedged between two beams. The kind their mom used to store sewing needles in. Inside it was a single manila envelope, slightly water-damaged, with her name written across the front in shaky handwriting. Lily. No return address. No stamp. Just her name. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were two things. 1. A handwritten letter, in blue ink, folded 3 times. 2. A Polaroid photo of a dusty journal page, torn and smeared with mud. She recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Emily's. The letter read, "Lily, if you're reading this, it means I finally made it close. I don't know if I'll get to you, but I couldn't leave without trying. I know things now, things I shouldn't. Delaney wasn't working alone. Someone else helped him. Someone we know. I don't know who to trust. Not the cops. Not even you, not yet. If I disappear again, follow the names in the journal. There's more. So much more. And I think Mom knew. Look in her old recipe box. Under lemon pie. You'll understand. I'm so tired, Lil. I don't know how long I can keep going. But I had to try. I'm not ready to be a ghost." Lily nearly dropped the letter. She rushed downstairs, heart pounding. Her mother's old recipe box was still in the kitchen, dusty but untouched. Inside, she flipped past dozens of index cards until she reached lemon pie. Behind it, taped to the back of the divider, was a list of names. 7 of them. All women. All missing. All within a 10-year span. And scribbled beneath the last name in different ink. Delaney wasn't first. He was recruited. Suddenly, it hit her. This wasn't about one killer. It was a network. People in different states, hiding in plain sight. Emily had uncovered it, and now, she was the key. Lily called Agent Rivera immediately. The letter was rushed to forensics. But it was the Polaroid, the blurry shot of Emily's journal page, that provided the final clue. At the bottom of the page, almost invisible beneath the dirt smudge, were coordinates. And when those numbers were traced, they led to a small, abandoned motel just outside Knoxville, Tennessee. The GPS coordinates from Emily's letter led to the Shady Pines Motel, a crumbling, long-abandoned site off Highway 61 near Knoxville. No one had stayed there in over 8 years. The place had a reputation, squatters, drug use, strange noises, but no one paid much attention to it. Until now. Agent Rivera and her team arrived just after dawn, armed with a warrant and tactical backup. The building was unstable, and most of the doors hung crooked on rusted hinges. But room 108, the room the coordinates pointed to, was locked tight. Not boarded, not busted. Locked, with a brand new padlock. Someone had been here recently. They forced it open. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and rot. Dust coated everything, except for the center of the room. A table, a chair, and a metal filing cabinet sat perfectly clean, like they had been used yesterday. And on the table, a single cassette recorder. Taped to the top was a note written in blocky handwriting. "Play me." They pressed record. The tape crackled, and then Emily's voice came through. "If you found this, I'm probably dead. Or worse. I recorded everything. Every name I heard. Every coded message. Every sick thing he made me witness." Delaney wasn't just kidnapping girls. He was trading them, moving them between states. And someone inside law enforcement helped him. The man who helped Delaney, he used to be a cop. He said we were off the books. Said no one would miss us. He called me Emily 5, which means there were 4 Emilys before me. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the recorder. Emily hadn't just escaped. She had been documenting a trafficking ring. One that spanned years, involved multiple states, and was likely being covered up by someone in authority. Rivera opened the filing cabinet. Inside were dozens of folders, each with a different girl's name, dates, times, transit routes, and coded initials like TC, 4, or OK, or 5. Some folders were empty, as if someone had already removed the contents. But the last one was different. It was newer, thicker. It was labeled Summers, Emily, classified. Inside were printouts of surveillance photos, taken long after she had disappeared. At gas stations, roadside motels, even a frame showing her entering a pawn shop in Oklahoma City just 2 weeks earlier. Emily had stayed alive by staying on the move. But now they had something else, proof that someone was tracking her. And just as Rivera thought the trail was finally going cold, her phone buzzed. "We found her." They found her just outside Chattanooga, walking barefoot on the side of a two-lane back road, wearing a man's oversized hoodie and clutching a torn backpack. A call came from a school bus driver who saw her at 6:42 a.m., limping and waving for help. "She looked like a ghost," he said, like she'd been running from hell itself. When law enforcement arrived, she didn't resist. She didn't speak. She just handed them her journal. Inside, nearly 140 pages told the full story. From her abduction, to the horrors she endured, to her escape, and the vast, sickening network she uncovered piece by piece as she traveled. She'd changed names, stolen rides, slept in ditches, pawned her own shoes for bus fare. But most of all, she documented. Not just for herself, but for the other girls who never got the chance. She identified 4 men connected to the ring. 2 former law enforcement. 1 a pastor. 1 a school administrator. And yes, Delaney wasn't the leader. He was just the handler. Emily had written in her journal, "They want silence. They want ghosts. But I remember everything." Lily was flown in that evening. Their reunion was raw, powerful. 2 sisters. 1 who never gave up hope, and 1 who survived what no one ever should. But Emily's return wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Her testimony led to 6 arrests in 5 states. The motel files exposed trafficking routes stretching from Kentucky to New Mexico. And quietly, over the following months, 7 more missing girls were recovered alive, all of whom had been listed in the files found in room 108. The nation called her the girl who outran the dark. But she never sought fame. She refused interviews, declined book deals. Instead, she disappeared again, this time on her own terms. No one knows exactly where she is today. But every year, on the anniversary of her escape, Lily receives a letter in the mail. Always unsigned, always typed, always ending with one line. "I'm still remembering for them." And taped inside, there's always a photo of another girl. Another one Emily found. Another one she helped bring home. Because Emily Summers didn't come back to be saved. She came back to save others. And in doing so, she proved something few people ever get to witness. Even after death tries to erase you, even after the world stops looking, the truth finds its way home.